It's end of summer and my green stalks have started to taper off and they aren't looking very pretty. But hey, we show the good, the bad, and the ugly, which is kind of how I feel today on this hot, sweaty day on this channel. And so I'm going to show you what my green stalks look like and some of the actions I'm taking to get them cleaned up and prepared for my fall garden. Hey folks, if we haven't met before, my name is Tara. I garden in the Bay Area and I've got a ton of videos about tips and tricks and hacks on how to get the most out of your green stalks. So check out that playlist. I'll put it at the end of this video as well as maybe on top over here. But today we're going to do some cleanup. It's always hard at the end of summer to really take down all those plants from your green stalk. I love the beauty of the green stalk and many of them are just not looking beautiful anymore, and it's time to get my fall garden going, so that's exciting. So let's do the cleanup and I'll share with you some tips and tricks on how to transition your garden. So first off, my arch trellis that I put in pretty late in the summer didn't really take off, didn't do very much as far as letting plants creep on it. It was a little too late in the season. So I'm looking forward to having it fill out next season. I'm planning on planting possibly pole beans is what I'm thinking of, or maybe a rampicant squash or something really drastic. So yeah, Mr. Sloth, he's been supervising the garden and he is also feeling a little bit down. So he's going to get a little bit of cleanup. I think there's some bird poop on him as well. But yeah, it is time to really start getting rid of some of the plants that are drying out. Let's start with my bean tower. So the bean tower had one set of beans that I planted in midsummer and they produced like crazy for me. I am loving how beans are doing in the green stalk. This is actually the first year, believe it or not, that I'm actually seriously growing beans in the green stalk, and they did really well. But beans, especially bush beans, they have a limited lifetime and then they start to look like this and they don't produce very much, at which point we actually have to take the drastic action of pulling them out. Now, there is one problem about growing beans in your green stalk. So I like to succession plant my beans because that way I can keep the harvest going. But with the green stalk, because the plants grow so big during summer particularly, and then they start to shade everything out, you really can't succession plant very well in your green stalk, because I actually tried and I actually had a lot of my bean plants just sort of die off even before they could get started. So if you've got a fresh tower, then definitely you can start your beans in them. But if you've already got full towers, it's a little bit difficult to do succession planting in the green stalk. At least that's what's been my experience. But let me know what your experience has been and if you've got any tips to share on how to do succession planting in the green stalk, because I would really like to do that, particularly in summer for things like my beans as well as tomatoes, cuttings and things. I like to actually get successions going, but my successions never seem to really take off. Before I take down a lot of these plants, let's just do a quick tour of the green stalk to see what's going on here. Now, most of the eggplants have started developing spider mite damage. No matter how much I watered them, sprayed them, they eventually succumb to spider mite damage. Though it was a little bit later this year, which is kind of nice. Oh, and I've got some stuff to harvest as well. Look at that beautiful white eggplant. Another thing that I have not yet harvested that I'm really excited and growing for the first time this year is soybean. Now I am ready actually to harvest these, and these have been productive little things. I mean, they produce quite a bit of soybeans for me. Look at that, bunches and bunches. So soybeans grow really well in the green stalk, and next year I'm actually thinking about dedicating an entire green stalk just to growing soybeans because my family absolutely loves them and we can't get enough of them. The other thing that is growing quite well actually in this green stalk is a new kind of melon I'm growing this year, kind of a cantaloupe. You can actually see it over there. It's called Tigger melon. I wrapped these up in a plastic box because the squirrels have been really mean to me this year. So they are growing actually quite nicely, and I hear that they're not very tasty melons, but for the green stalk they have been super productive. It's difficult to grow cantaloupes in the green stalk, though I have to say I grew the largest cantaloupe of my life in a green stalk last year or the year before. But yeah, cantaloupes just don't do that well in the green stalk, so smaller varieties maybe, so I'm trying that out this year. I got the last of my okra, which also didn't do that great. So maybe I'm not going to try it again, but I'm going to save this one for seeds. This is a bush variety. It's called Cajun Jewel. But to tell you the truth, I've not been able to grow okra successfully anywhere else in my garden either. So it might just be me. I just love that pop of color that this, I think it's called Blazing Flames or something like that, this coleus. It looks so pretty in the green stalk, and it loves the shade. So that's one of those things that you can grow that actually appreciates being shaded out. And another thing that is growing really well, this is another green stalk that I haven't done very much to, frankly, this summer. I kind of stuck a few eggplants in here. There was one tomato plant that actually did fairly well. And you know what's growing really well all the way up here is this pepper plant. I don't even remember what variety this is, but it's definitely a hot pepper. You can tell from the small teeny size of it and the fact that it's sticking up. Pretty sure it's a hot pepper. So I don't know, bird's eye pepper, something like that. Don't remember what it is. I think it's an ornamental pepper, and it does look actually really, really pretty. And in this tower, the sweet alyssum is really doing its thing. Now, I do love growing sweet alyssum in the green stalk, but they do tend to take over, you guys. So I've got to constantly prune this thing, and I just never seem to be able to keep up. So grow sweet alyssum, but be wary of the fact that it will really shade a lot of things out, and it will grow pretty darn aggressively. And speaking of peppers, this green stalk, I know they're kind of looking a little dried out. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But this green stalk has produced a ton of peppers for me. I believe these are Jimmy Nardellos or Corbaci or something like that. But yeah, I harvested the most peppers in my garden this year from my green stalks. And these are actually sweet peppers. Look at that beautiful color, you guys. Beautiful lipstick red. I just love that particular variety of pepper. So I will be growing a lot more of them next year, and maybe even dedicating a tower to them because my family loves sweet peppers. Kind of sad though to see the plants starting to dry out in the green stalk. And then speaking of drying out, during the heat of summer, the green stalks dry out very, very quickly. I just can't seem to be able to keep up with the watering in my hot California summer. The irrigation that I have installed has been a lifesaver. I don't think I could have any success without it. So yeah, if you live in a hot, dry climate, you guys, irrigation, really, it's the way to go. The green stalks on this side of my greenhouse are really on their way out. Everything is drying out and not looking beautiful anymore. Look at that tomato plant. The petunias, they grew and grew, but they didn't produce very many blooms. I'm not sure what's going on. Maybe they just didn't get enough sun, shaded out by this giant oak tree. Not really sure. And then the eggplants also, look at them. They all stayed really small and kind of just look dried out. So yeah, this green stalk particularly, I didn't do a good job of, and I think it's partly also I grew the wrong plants in it for the fact that I've got a lot of shade on this side particularly of my greenhouse. So yeah, sunshine really important, and where you position your green stalk, super important to the success of your green stalks. Moving along to this side, again, sweet alyssum, just looking all bedraggled, but definitely growing like crazy. I can't tell you how many times I've come and chopped this back, but it just keeps growing. I might even consider not growing sweet alyssum in the green stalk again, just because of its aggressive nature. It looks gorgeous, by the way, in spring, but then after that, it starts to dry out. It doesn't really go away, but it just stays and it grows a lot of green, and then it looks like this. The marigolds have been growing huge, and even though it's not in full bloom right now, it was a little while ago. And yeah, so marigolds do super well, and they grow all through summer. So definitely something that I will always have in my green stalk in summer. And cardinal basil is another thing that I absolutely love. So you guys, this is an ornamental basil. You can look at how beautiful those blooms are. They look great in bouquets and vases, and their leaves, look how big they are. They actually taste exactly like Thai basil. So if you don't quite like growing Thai basil because the leaves are so small and skinny, consider growing cardinal basil. Same taste, gives you the bloom, and the leaves are bigger. So can't go wrong with that. So I'm going to show you a couple more green stalks that I'm kind of hesitant to show you just because they have been so neglected. But hey, today's all about showing the uglies, it looks like. So let's take a look at them. As I'm walking towards these green stalks, they are not actually looking all that ugly. So these are my razzleberry green stalks. Yeah, you can hardly see them because of all the plants that are growing in them, but they are the most neglected green stalks in my entire set of 12. And the only thing that these get is water from the top. Every day for a few minutes, maybe 6 or 7 minutes, they get watered. I do not pocket water them, I do not fertilize them, and frankly, I barely even prune them because they scare me. But the intent of these green stalks actually is served very well, because what I wanted to do with these is plant perennials in them that I eventually am going to plant in my garden, and things like geraniums and this coleus, which is not a perennial, but I will be overwintering it. And then things like this bloodleaf, this fuchsia, there are snapdragons in here. They are all going to go into my garden somewhere else, and I wanted to see whether I could get them started successfully in the green stalk. And as you can see, they have been much more than successful. These green stalks have done simply amazing with just water. Look at those geraniums, you guys. These were just little sticks when I put them in I think it was late spring. Wow. Yeah, but I'm kind of scared of them, partly because birds tend to build their nests in them and they dive at me when I come to them. And then the other thing is it's very difficult to access anything in these green stalks. They're just so super hyper productive. Yep. I love these. I hate these. I'm not really sure what it is, but they have done really, really well for me, almost too well. And I have to show you my lemon green stalks, the one that I grew zinnias in. You guys, okay, so either you love it or you hate it, but don't grow the very tall zinnias in your green stalk. And if you do, grow it in the upper, because it actually looks really nice in the upper, but in the lower ones, they kind of tend to do this. I'm gonna have to chop this back. Yeah, I can't keep up with keeping them small like I originally intended to do when I first planted out these green stalks. The zinnias just grow too tall, too quickly, too frequently. So yeah, but I still love them. They look gorgeous. And my petunia green stalk, it's growing really well. I mean, the plants are growing beautifully. I've started actually getting a few petunias, but this particular variety, this top tier, it's called Greetings of Jeremiah or something like that, full of little caterpillars. Oh my gosh, you can see that poop over here, and they have just been eating up these little petunia plants. So kind of sad about that. I tried picking them up, but I just can't find them all. And but anyway, hopefully in a future video I will show you this tower looking gorgeous with a lot of petunia blooms. And I've got snapdragons at the bottom. Started getting a few blooms. Now this tower was started very late in the year, so it's kind of an experiment to see whether I get much out of it, but it's fun anyway. And gosh, that blueberry color is so pretty. And speaking of pretty colors, who has bought the new blackberry color? I was so tempted, you guys, but I am at 12 green stalks right now, and I really have to let that settle in for a bit, because I take a lot of care of my green stalks, and so it's more and more maintenance. So I want to make sure that I'm comfortable with this before I get any more. But gosh, that blackberry color was so tempting. So if you bought the blackberry, let me know in the comments below and what you're growing in them. Now, because my peppers are doing so well in my green stalks, I'm actually thinking next year of dedicating entire towers to certain varieties of plants. So, for example, peppers, I'm going to have a dedicated pepper tower with similar growing style peppers. So things that don't grow too tall and don't grow too lanky, if you will, like jalapenos. They grow super tall, won't be growing those, but things like this Jimmy Nardello that stay short but produce a lot, those are the kinds of peppers I'm going to be growing, and I'm going to be dedicating green stalk to it. Similarly with beans, I feel that the beans do well if they've got a green stalk dedicated to them, so that's what I'll be doing. Won't be planting any sunflowers or marigolds. Okay, maybe I will plant a couple of flowers, but for the most part it's going to be just beans in the tower. So as I clean up these green stalks for fall, one of the things that is happening, I'm getting a few empty pockets here and there. So I'm very tempted right now. Should I be starting some fall plants, like maybe some cilantro or dill or something like that? Maybe even throw in a broccoli or two. What do you guys recommend that I do? I am not too sure, frankly. On the one hand, I'm thinking I'll just sort of take down this entire tower, refresh it completely, pull everything off, and start from fresh. The other side of me says, hey, if they are continuing to grow and produce, let them produce for a bit more. So this is the gardener's dilemma, I think, at the end of summer. Do you pull or do you keep? There are a few guidelines I have in mind when it comes to making that decision. So here we go. First off, is the plant really producing for you, or at least looking like it's really going to produce for you? Case in point, this tomato plant here. So it's actually a fairly healthy plant. I mean, yeah, it's got a few brown leaves here and there, but for the most part, I can trim it off and it'll probably do okay. But will it actually produce for me? I'm looking at these tomato blossoms starting to show up at the top, and it's a tough decision. But just looking at the overall health of the plant, I think I'm going to pull it. What do you guys think? The second criterion is the plant actually looking gorgeous and healthy? Because for me, the plants in my green stalks need to look good. If they're not looking good, they're not giving me that sense of beauty that I really look forward to in my green stalks, and they have to go. Though this has a huge eggplant on it, which needs to be harvested ASAP. It's probably too late already, and there's more coming. But this plant is full of spider mites, and it looks really, really ugly. So it's got to go. The third thing is, what is the majority of the plants growing in the green stalk looking like? So for example, this one has mostly bean plants that are kind of on their way out. It does have some healthy plants as well. It's got basil, it's got some sunflowers. So should I refresh the entire thing, or should I kind of just let it be and languish? I think for this particular plant, I'm actually going to give it a chance, mainly because I've got a watermelon plant growing here. Yeah, I'm not going to get watermelons this year, guys, but it's the only watermelon plant that seems to have survived this year, and we've had a really cool summer. So I am hoping that maybe I can squeeze out a watermelon. I don't know. And then I've got this other, I think this is a rampicant squash that has only just started flowering. The plant itself is not doing that great, but I'm going to trim it back, and I'm going to hope that it actually takes off once I clear out a lot of the bean plants here. So yeah, even though this one would have been a prime candidate for me to actually do a complete refresh, there are some plants that are preventing me from doing that. So we're going to give them a chance. And finally, do I need the green stalks for something else? So even if the plants are doing well, I know it's end of season and I'm not going to get too much more out of them, and I do need to get some fall plants in. So I am actually going to clear up a couple of green stalks and actually start to prep them for my fall garden. Today I'm actually not going to take down any green stalks and restack them, mainly because I got a live stream coming up this weekend and I don't want to have empty green stalks around me. But I will prune them back drastically, and then I will do a second review and see which ones really need to be cleaned out completely, and we'll make the decision then. But today I'm going to do some heavy pruning. Another problem of having large plants like this that are not really doing anything for you, they are sucking up all the water and depriving the other plants of water as well as nutrients. They gotta go, or at least they gotta be trimmed back quite a bit. Okay, so this is what I mean. After I got done pruning all the dead stuff out of this, I was left with pretty much nothing except for this one ugly tomato plant. Now, this actually is a prime candidate for a fall garden, because other than this plant, there's nothing more shading things out here. So I'm going to pull the rest of this out, and I'm actually going to be setting this up for my fall garden. So one question that I get a lot is, do you actually just sort of backfill, amend green stalks between seasons, or do you actually completely refresh them? Now, I do both. Once a year, at least once a year, I restack and completely refresh the soil in all my green stalks. And the main reason is because the saucers in between, they tend to block up and they get debris in them and they get black widows in them. So I like to clean out my green stalk completely at least once a year. But between seasons, I often just amend them. I kind of backfill them. I always have a bucket that is full of GreenStalk approved soil that I make myself. And so I backfill them. And I don't do that just between seasons. I do that constantly. As the levels drop, I always backfill them with some good new fresh soil, and that really helps rejuvenate the plants that are in the GreenStalk. So yeah, definitely you want to fill up the pockets all the way to the top if you're not going to be restacking them. But do consider restacking your GreenStalks. And when I say restack, I mean take them all down, take them apart, maybe even throw out the soil, and then you don't throw out the soil. You refresh the soil. You dump out the soil and refresh it with additional compost, some more perlite, some slow release fertilizer maybe, and then restack them after that. Now, I've heard of people who don't do that at all. They go year over year without doing that. All the power to them. If you're one of them, let me know your secret. But for me, mine do tend to get blocked up, and I actually get black widows, the gray saucers in between. So I really like to clean them out at least once a year. So I'm going to finish these up off camera, but tell me in the comments below, are you growing a fall garden this year? Are you planting up fall plants in your GreenStalk? And if so, what are you growing? I'd love to know. And if you got that new blackberry, let me know in the comments as well. Until next time, folks, live green and love your greens.